Hey, I'm Drake with Venom Products. We are an aftermarket company that specializes in tuning components such as helixes, springs, and primary weights for side-by-sides, ATVs, snowmobiles, and new for 2025, the Can-Am Ryker. Today I'll be going over a step-by-step guide on how to access the belt room, change your belt, and install our Stage 1 clutch kit. We developed our Stage 1 clutch kit to give more low-end traction, but also improve backshift to make it more responsive at partial throttle. We maintain the stock back angle to keep the same deceleration characteristics.
Tools you're going to need for this job, some being sockets as well as torque style sockets. You're going to want a couple of extensions. In particular, you're going to want a swivel. Makes life easier when you're trying to get to the belt room because the belt cover has some awkward bolts. I used a flathead screwdriver in order to remove the plastic rivets. You can do the same, or you can get the plastic rivet tool, which is a lot easier than using the flathead. Special tools you're going to need is a belt spreader for a QRS and a compression tool in order to install the helix and spring. I will link those both out in the description. An impact will make this job go quicker. You'll want a torque wrench if you'd like to torque the bolts properly, and a floor jack would be helpful as well. Whenever you're using an impact, you're going to want to pay attention to what you're doing. There are two tabs that you have to lift up in order to remove the battery cover, and after that, the radiator cover has two screws at the base. Every Torx bolt on the body, including the clutch cover, are T30. The only T40 is in the back of the clutch that holds on the helix. After you remove the battery cover and the two screws that hold on the radiator cover, you have to pull down on the radiator cover at the seam. Here's an example of how you need to do that in order to get it off. There are three plastic rivets that need to be removed to get each side cover off. So you remove those rivets, and then you have to pull towards the front of the panel in order to disengage the front clip, and then you have another one of those goofy plastic junctions at the back. So if you pull outwards at the back of that panel, it should come right off as shown. Other side, of course, is the same. Here's the location of the rest of the bolts you have to remove in order to split the clamshell. The first two are the same on the other side. We're going to pivot on that front bolt, so we only have to loosen that one, but we're going to have to completely remove the back bolt. When you're removing that back bolt, it has a tendency to pop the nut out that's pressed into the plastic on the backside. So you're going to want to hold your hand back there to kind of capture that nut, because if it goes flying, it usually ends up in the bottom of the under tray, and then it's about impossible to get. Ask me how I know. After you completed that process on both sides, you just need to prop up the clamshell. So you just get a board or what have you at about the right length and just stick it between the seat base and the bottom of the seat. Now to remove the clutch cover, you're going to need to prop up the exhaust with something like a jack. Then you can remove the 15mm bolt that holds the exhaust in, after which there's a 10mm bolt that holds that seat bracket in. Once you remove all of that, then you can concentrate on the 14 T30 bolts that hold on the clutch cover. Once you have the clutch cover loose, you're just going to need to slide the exhaust over a little bit to gain yourself some room. Then you can pick up the cover in the direction shown here in order to get it out of there. Remove the 17mm bolt that holds the secondary clutch on. After that, you can use your clutch spreading tool and thread that into the clutch. Then you just need to run the bolt in on the clutch spreader tool in order to spread out the clutch, and it'll shove the belt down into the clutch and gain you enough room to be able to remove the secondary. There is a very important shim that you need to keep track of. It'll either be on the post like it was for me, or it'll still be stuck in the clutch. So you're going to want to make sure that you put that back exactly how it was in that same orientation. To remove the belt, you're going to have to also remove a small insulation piece at the base of the clutch housing. After you remove that, you should have enough room to sneak the belt out of there. Remove the clutch spreader, so just run that bolt out and then unscrew the tool. Then grab your compression tool and go ahead and run that wing nut down good and tight so that you can remove the bolts for the helix. Bolts themselves are T40. You should be able to loosen them by hand. They might fight you. It'd be easier if you mount your compression tool in a vise. That'll give you a little bit more leverage. Then you can run out the screws all the way. Then you can disassemble the clutch. So before you disassemble it completely, you want to make 2 marks in the clutch, just so you get it back together as it was for balance. There's also 2 arrows in the clutch face itself that will tell you how to realign it. So here we have your helix and spring with the 2 Delrin washers. So in order to remove that other one, you might have to smack the helix against the table just to make sure it pops out of there. Then when you put in your new helix and spring, you just reinstall that Delrin washer on the top and bottom. Make sure to line up the rollers with the track itself and not the cutout. And then otherwise just make sure to line up your lines again when you reinstall it. So when you crank it down, you should be able to see the threads for the helix. Then you just adjust that accordingly so you can get the thread started. Crank it all the way down once they're all started, and then run them in all the way. For the helix bolts, I'll typically just run them down by hand and get them good and tight, but if you'd like to, you can replace with new bolts that have the Loctite on them and torque to this spec. Installing the new belt, you're going to want to make sure to check the rotation so that it's rotating counterclockwise when you're looking at the clutch cover. Then you're going to want to reinstall the little piece of insulation they have down there. You have to reinstall your tool for spreading clutch. Just thread that into the clutch, then crank it down in order to spread out the clutch. Then you can put it back on the shaft and just make sure, of course, that your little spacer deal is in there, the one that I mentioned earlier. Then lining it up with the splines can be a bit of a time, but you'll feel it clunk in eventually. Now you can shift the transmission from forward or reverse into a spot in between the two, and then the clutch will free spin, and you can run the belt up to where it should be. Then you just need to install your 17mm bolt. In order to torque the secondary, you have to put it back in gear and make sure the parking brake is on. Then you can torque to this spec. Now you're going to want to reinstall the sound deadener for the clutch enclosure. You'll see that there are some built-in clip style deals in that enclosure that hold that deadener in place. So after you get that in there, you're just going to want to make sure that you have it fully seated behind all those clips, as you can see in the video here. And then it wouldn't be a bad idea just to double check to make sure that that base sound deadener deal is fully seated in the enclosure as well. After you double check that the secondary is torqued and the insulation is in place properly, you can reinstall the cover. You might have to give it a little smack to make sure that it fully seats on the seal. Reassembly is pretty self-explanatory. I do have a few tips to help you along the way though. You're going to want to reinstall those 14 bolts in the clutch cover, then reinstall the 10 mil bolt that holds on that seat bracket. Then you can move on to the exhaust. Directly down where the exhaust bolt goes in, you'll have to situate your exhaust so it lines up, and then jack it up with the jack so you can hand thread in the exhaust bolt. Now you have to lower the clamshell and open up the intake cover. You can see behind there is this coupler for the fuel lines that is supposed to stick into the intake. Now it takes a good amount of force to push it into the intake to get it to fully seat, but you can get her done. After that's in place, you can reinstall all of your screws under your seat, both sides of the gas tank, and then in the front as well. Then you can put your side covers back on and move on to the front cover. There are two prongs on the radiator cover that you have to align with the grommets in the chassis. After that, you can deal with the plastic junctions as shown. There should just be 2 bolts left to screw in at the base of the radiator cover, and then throw your battery cover back on.
I hope this video helped you in installing your Stage 1 clutch kit. Let us know what you think of it and what you'd like to see from us in the future in the comments down below.